Hi, everyone. Welcome to Consider the Lilies. My name is Brooklyn Whitmer,
My name is Megan Fevier.
and today we have Maggie Youngs. We are so excited to have her on the podcast. So, before we get started on our conversation, we're going to start with the bio. So, Maggie Youngs is a songwriter and artist from Troy, Michigan. She has been songwriting. It's been a part of her heart in life since middle school. So, she'll tell you that she doesn't remember ever sitting down and deciding to write a song, which is really cool. Instead, she simply remembers being an anxious middle schooler, learning to pray. Those prayers just happened to be underscored with a few simple chords she had learned in piano lessons. Maggie longs for others to know the kindness of the Father's heart and to find Him right in the midst of whatever it is that they may be going through. Day to day, she is songwriting and also help running the Full Circle Music Academy, which is equipping other songwriters alongside Full Circle's founder, Seth Mosley. You can learn more about Full Circle at fullcirclemusic.com. Thank you so much, Maggie, for being here. We're so happy to
Thanks
have
for
you.
having me.
We're so stoked.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank
Yes.
you again for taking the time. Brooklyn is the one that found your sweet self to come on, and she's like, Megan, look at this incredible girl. And I will admit, I Instagram stalked you, and I think I told you this before we came on live. And I was like, she's so sweet, and she has such a sweet, sweet heart. So I'm so thrilled. Brooklyn's so thrilled. And one question that we ask everybody that comes on the podcast is, how have you seen God in your life lately, in the little things and in the big things? Where have you been considering the lilies of God in your life?
Mm. Wow, what a good question. Also, yeah, just right out of the gate. A good one, a big one. And again, too, just really, you guys are so sweet. You guys are just funny. I feel like just everything I've seen about your guys' podcast, listening to clips, all of it, you guys are just such sweet, wonderful people. So, thank you guys for being, yeah, just doing what you're doing and allowing me to be a part of it. Um, Okay, so how am I considering the lilies or like seeing God a part of my everyday right now? That is such a great question. I feel like, hmm, I'm gonna take a second to like think about that. How I've been seeing the Lord. I feel like He has just been so kind in helping me just kind of process a bunch of little things. I'm in a season of a lot of transition right now, both in kind of relationally to a degree, in my job, in kind of church world, and figuring out kind of where I fully want to plant my feet. And so, in a lot of those things, there's just been lots of kind of processing that stirs up as you guys, as happens, as one does. And so, in the midst of that, I feel like it's been just really sweet, like lots of little reminders of I couldn't even tell you like a oh practically because I see this tree or flower and then it reminds me of this or that, but just I feel like in the midst of that there's been lots of sweet just kind of reminders of like hey, from God, of like hey, I see you in this transition. I know where you're going. I know where you are. It's actually okay that you don't know where you're going yet. Just like stay the course, be here. I see you here. And have been really grateful for that and some of those little encouragements that have come through my boyfriend, through friends, through just a bunch of various places. So um, I think that's the immediate answer that comes to my mind. Yeah. What
I
about
love
you guys?
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I allowed to ask questions back?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And we've had people like ask that back too. Some people just were like, wait, maybe I should ask you guys too. But
Yeah.
no, it is a great question because with the lilies, you just feel like you're always the Lord just like teaches you so much in different seasons and it looks different. But for me, I just feel like he's been bringing me back to the secret place, like back to cherishing quiet time with him because it's easy to get caught up in like the industry and stuff and want to do more, be more. And sometimes there's moments where it's just quiet. And in the quietness, it's almost hard to like be still because I just want to like do something and like be active. But sometimes God just like wants us to really cherish that quiet time with him because he's teaching and growing like us. And like for me, I know like I've really seen the beauty of just the simplicity of stillness with him and just like really getting to know his heart. so that when I do come to a place when it's time to really share like songs or be a part of on a film set, that I know the security that I've been to the secret place and I can still go to the secret place even where when I'm out and about. And it's not, it's cool like just to witness that in the moment and then go and do like be a part of things and then knowing that it's always there. He's always there. So I think that's what he's been showing me a lot recently.
That's good. I love that. The song Quiet too, if you guys have heard that one, I feel like that's been on repeat recently for me. So I definitely relate to some of that. And I love that.
Yeah.
Good. Megan?
Oh, I think for me, God has been showing up a lot lately. So kind of I can relate to you so much, Maggie, when it's like you're going through a transitional period. And I won't go into a lot of like what that looks like in my story, but just learning to slow because Brooklyn knows this about me. I'll say yes to 6 million things, and then I'll be like, oh, wow, okay, that's a lot. Um, and I'm learning to slow down, take time, and just breathe in um what God has called me to right here and right now versus, the 6 million other things that could come for my attention.
Mm-hmm.
So really knowing that his mercies are new every morning, his grace is sufficient for the day. And that, everything will work out in the end, that I don't need to push and pull to make all the things happen. And that's what he's teaching me in this season because I like to make things happen very quickly. And that can be the greatest gift, especially in Nashville and in the industry that we're in, but it can also be the worst nightmare. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. It's like both, and kind of what both of you are saying is like both of those kind of, I don't know, lessons or process with the Lords are actually the things that like help us notice the lilies better. You know what I mean? So it's funny how like, in your question, it's like you're partially answering the like what this is like what God is showing me, but like even more so maybe it's the like here's the how he's showing. You know what I mean? He's helping me actually notice those things better in this very process, if that made any sense at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I love that.
I love that too. That's so cool. So we have another question, and we want to ask, so what motivated you to write songs? Because you said you're a songwriter, which is awesome. What motivated you to write songs that encourage people in the middle of your own personal journey with anxiety? Like, how have you used that part of your journey to write or even speak into those situations in the music that you write? Or, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love to
sure.
hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, so I started songwriting kind of like I said, or you even read in like your little bio. I don't really remember sitting down and being like, I'm going to write a song today. Like, honestly, in my family dynamic growing up, like I took piano lessons, I took voice lessons, but my brother and sister were like the like big musical ones. Like both were choir kids, theater kids, the leads and everything kids. And so for whatever that's worth, it's not that like music wasn't part of my life because it was, but it like wasn't my thing in the same way. And so songwriting that's I guess another piece of how like I wasn't like looking to like do music or be the musical one when I started songwriting. Again, it really was a big part of my testimony is that I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder when I was in sixth grade. And so um it was in kind of just the midst of this really paralyzing anxiety that I was encouraged to start journaling at the same time, around that time. Again, learned chords and just in the midst of that, found myself like learning to pray, and they just happened to have melodies attached to them. And so that's kind of again how that started, or like the why wasn't necessarily to, so for other people to connect or anything at that point, at least. It really was more so to um just to connect with God myself, to have a conversation. And so that's for sure in some ways evolved, some ways hasn't. I think in some ways I almost like crave to just go back to that simplicity and like not really worry about anything else in a lot of ways. Almost similar to what you were saying, Brooklyn, just about like how the Lord has been taking you back to the secret place. Like that place, like at the piano, just like sitting, singing, processing feels like such a sacred secret place that sometimes I can forget in, going to co-writes or work or all the things that come with life, and so um and then kind of now I'm releasing songs. Honestly, I I wrestle a lot with releasing music myself, and if that's something I want to do, like kind of long term, I have been releasing music myself, but a lot of my time is spent kind of writing with other people. But I think the few songs that I have released, there's kind of been two reasons as to why I've released them. One is because they've each had just kind of a topic or theme. Not all of them are super explicitly related to anxiety. They kind of honestly all do in some way, shape, or form if you like really think about them. But just because they've had a topic that has been a lot to me or has been a process, and honestly, almost more so than the songs themselves, I've wanted to, like, for example, the song I just released a song called Time Isn't My Healer. And like, yes, I want people to write, like, listen to that song or whatever, but almost even more than that, like in releasing the song, I just want to tell people, like, this is what this process has looked like in my own life. And that's kind of a bit of the why. The other kind of why, which is kind of a weird one, it doesn't even relate fully to the songs themselves, but um it trying to keep this concise. Basically, I moved to Nashville about 6 years ago now, and for about the first 3.5 years I was here, music really wasn't part of my life. Again, it had been a really big piece of my testimony growing up. And I know I didn't even fully get into that, but more of the story is worship. Songwriting was a really big vehicle for me coming to know the Lord, and then him just showing me that he cared and had good plans for me, beyond what I could imagine. And so moving here to Nashville, though, I felt pretty instantly like the Lord asked me to not study music, to just kind of trust him with it. And so I did that, and really threw myself into, encouraging a lot of friends who were doing musical things around me or other things. But it wasn't a part of my identity the way it was for a lot of people in Nashville. And yeah, just kind of was doing that, was a ministry major and a nonprofit business major, and was pretty, all into that stuff, and didn't really know what place music would have. And in the midst of that too, like, genuinely love encouraging other people in what they're doing. But then, and that being said, when I did kind of start to have a better understanding of the music industry and be in a place where I could co-write if I wanted to, and I could kind of release music if I wanted to, and was in that space, really wrestled with, like, well, do I, or like, have I only been taken this far to encourage other people in what they're doing? Like, maybe that's really the point. Maybe I'm just supposed to encourage other people in what they're doing. And was really wrestling with that, feeling insecure, selfish about the idea of kind of songwriting myself. And then was meeting with kind of a mentor one day, and he hit me with, Maggie, take the time to songwrite, if for no other reason than you're going to start to resent the people you're trying to encourage if you don't. Which sounds so crazy, but for me was so freeing and such a paradigm shift. And so that feels like a weird reason to explain, but when it came to the start of me, like, actually doing the releasing part of songs, part of it was like, yeah, I care about this topic, I want to be able to talk about this thing God has done in my heart. And another piece of it was just me giving myself permission to do it in general, and like be okay with that and not feel selfish about it or in my head about it, because God's a good father and he just likes when we share our gifts, and that's also okay and enough. Anyways, that was a lot. I'm going to stop talking now because I feel like I over answered that question, but
No,
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that into just more of the question, because I wanted you to share that too, because I know that with it's cool to see how, like, with your gifts, like, God had taken you from the secret place and was like, I really want you to use this, like, for my glory. And we, like you said, we get in our heads of, like, is this kind of a thing where I'm putting myself out there to where it's like it's all for me, because it's not what I want. But God's just like, I gave you these gifts. I want you to use them for me to shine through. And so I think you have shown that in your testimony, that you were in a place of, like, I don't know if I should, like, I just want it for me and the Lord. But he took that and was like, everyone's got something in their lives, like either anxiety or things that they deal with, and they don't know how to actually put it into words. But with music, you can feel it, you can hear it, you can sing it out. And so for you to have that outlet and then share it with others has been, I know it has to be such a blessing. And so, yeah, thanks for going into more of that journey of how you got to this place of writing that music, because it's really cool.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't too much of a sidebar.
No, it was great. It was
No.
wonderful.
Yeah.
No, and I think all of those things they always help people. Like they help the people that
Yeah.
are gonna listen. And they help the people that, like need to hear that stuff. Like the people that are dealing with anxiety now, like how do they go forward and deal with all of those emotions that they're feeling?
Yeah.
So I think that's so important to share. But like you mentioned, you do have a new single out called Time Isn't My Healer. What inspired, you kind of touched on it, but what inspired you to write this song and how have you seen that impact?
Sure. Yeah, great question. First of all, just to your point, Megan, about saying just, if there's anybody listening in regards to just even your last question who is anxious or wondering, like, what do I do here? I feel like the biggest thing, and maybe you guys relate to this in your guys' stories too, is just taking that next step that the Lord might have for you. Sometimes that step feels like it's just so small, it feels not even worth taking. And sometimes it feels like it's off of a cliff into a canyon, but both are so important. And the Lord uses them both. And you can do it afraid. If your worst fear is having a panic attack in front of a bunch of people, I've done it. And so, like, you can make it through. I promise. I've done it multiple times. And so, anyways, kind of a sidebar, but just, I don't know, to your point, Megan, of, yeah, if there's anybody listening who that is kind of a piece of their story, but yeah, Time Isn't My Healer. So I originally started writing the song actually like the first week of 2020. So right at the beginning of the year. And that season, it was my sophomore year of college. And honestly, it was just a really, really hard year. I lost several family members. We found out that I had a benign brain tumor and a vascular malformation in my brain. Praise God, I'm like the short of that is I'm good. But at the time, we didn't know if I was okay. And then also I had my first like breakup, heartbreak right in the midst of that too. And so your girl was just like not well. I was going through it. And so in the midst of that, there was just one night in particular where I just was super anxious, couldn't sleep, was throwing up, just was probably one of the worst nights of my life. Again, just kind of feeling the weight of that season. And the next morning I woke up and just started singing like kind of gibberish. Like it was funny. I actually went back and found the voice memo that like the phrase "time isn't my healer" was in, and it was like 2.5 minutes into like an 8-minute voice memo that was like a non-coherent, so you know what I mean, just like so random all over the place. And so basically just stumbled upon singing the line "time isn't my healer," and then a string of several other verses. And at the time I didn't really know like what that meant. Like I don't know why the phrase "time isn't my healer" came out, but it was for whatever reason. And then that kind of string of verses I wrote just kind of became this comfort that I would sing over myself for the next several years, and processing again some of those similar griefs I just was talking about. And then obviously then COVID happened, and then like so much more then happened where we all needed healing in a lot of ways. And so just kind of became a song I would sing to myself, and then rewrote it multiple times because again it just started as a string of verses, and kind of so now like 4.5 years later, something like that released instead. And so have seen the impact of it? Great question. I feel like sometimes sometimes you get to see it more clearly than others. And so I feel like with this song, the most encouraging thing to me at least has been other people just saying that like it has met them in the midst of their own kind of waiting for healing or with God. And I guess I didn't even say this. Like I said, I didn't fully really understand what that phrase meant when I first wrote it. But what I came to learn over the last several years, or felt like the Lord was showing me through that, was the idea that, a lot of times we say that, time heals all wounds or these things. And the truth is that time can help. I think our wounds, time sometimes helps a lot. But it's not our healer in of itself. And like if you think of if you have, if you break your arm, like your arm isn't going to just like heal itself on its own. Like you're not gonna be like, oh well, time's gonna fix my broken arm. Like no, you have to go to a doctor and like the great physician. And so I think so often and my tendency has been to leave certain parts of my heart or emotional wounds or this or that kind of underneath the surface instead of just like going to God and bringing it to him. Not that it all gets wrapped up in a band-aid. God's also not trying to put a band-aid on our broken arm, but he is the one who wants to meet with us in the process and be a part of it. And so anyways, I think the biggest thing that's been encouraging is people saying that the song has been a reminder of that God is in their healing process, and that sometimes it is long, sometimes I've seen God heal in a moment, like miraculously. And I've also, especially in my journey with anxiety, while not what the specific song was about, it's for sure something that relates to my journey with anxiety, have come to find that there's also so much power in how the Lord heals over time and meets us just meets us where we're at in the journey of 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. So anyways, I feel like that was long again. I think I'm answering questions. If there's anything I'm not answering, feel free to say so. But
no, it's great. I love that you're you have, I think what's cool about it is that you can tell that you have really a lot of heart, and there's a lot of good intention from just like you just really trying to lean into what God's wanting you to say and share. And you can tell it's really been a journey for you. And it's awesome that you're vulnerable about it too and open to share with us. And thank you for doing that, because these songs and the journey that God puts us on, it's easy to kind of just like keep that as a thing for just ourselves. But like I said, again, it's cool to see you just sing it out and share it. And with Time Isn't My Healer, I listened to it too. It was really beautiful and just very it was like a journey. You could kind of go on this and listen to the song and be in this journey of like that time isn't my healer, but you are, Lord. And like just singing that over and over and just knowing like I believe that I do believe that he is my healer, regardless of all the circumstances and stuff, that he's the one that's gonna at the end of the day can heal my emotional, physical, any wounds or any parts of my life. He's the one that's going to bring that into beauty from ashes. So yeah, thank you for sharing that and opening up about that. We would love to ask you, I know in your bio you mentioned Full Circle Music, and we want to hear a little bit more about that. So can you tell us about that program and just how songwriters can be a part of this, and just give us a little bit of that. So
yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, what Full Circle is, it's an online academy that resources up and coming songwriters, artists, and producers. And so we do that through a variety of means. We have online courses, like a songwriting course, a production course. We have an app for songwriters where people can get feedback on their songs, connect with industry professionals. What else do we do? So many things. Find collaborators. A lot of people are from outside of Nashville. And so it's kind of like a mini Nashville in an app, which is super fun. And it was founded by a guy named Seth Mosley, who, if you've ever looked into him and kind of his story and success, he's incredible, just an incredible human, but also has just written all sorts of songs, particularly in the Christian and country music space. And so his heart in starting the academy really was to kind of just make information about the music industry more accessible than it often is. A lot of times people, if they're looking to get into the music industry, it's kind of like can feel so far off and like unattainable. Like, how do you know what publishers are actually thinking about, or what artists in their A&Rs, what do those conversations look like? What does the marketing space look like these days with social media and trends constantly changing, all these things? And so really the heart of it all was to just make that information a lot more palatable and, again, accessible to really anybody who's looking to make it as a songwriter or artist. And so that's kind of the academy. And so if anybody's interested, and again, support at fullcirclemusic.com is where you can reach out, or go to fullcirclemusic.com. I will also say that like I mentioned in my story, kind of a sweet thing for full circle is that when I first came to Nashville, I felt like the Lord pretty explicitly like asked me to trust him with that part of my heart when it came to music. And so for my first several years here, it really wasn't a part of my identity, or I really had no concept of the music industry, to be honest with you. Like I knew some about songwriting again, because I had been doing that for a while and just kind of my journey with God, but had no idea how the industry worked. And so so sweet, such an abundant answer to that prayer was me getting to stumbling upon Full Circle and then learning so much from them. And then now kind of helping run most of the operations at the academy is kind of where we're currently at. And so yeah, super grateful for the journey of it. But that's a little bit about Full Circle, if that made any sense.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. And I think, I mean, Brooklyn and I are both music. She's more film than I'm film, but both industry people. So that always gets us excited to hear when people are doing big things in the industry. So I love it. What would be one, as we get ready to close out here, what would be one like word of encouragement or just a phrase of encouragement that you would have for somebody that's struggling in their anxiety?
Hmm. Oh, that's such a good and loaded question. I feel like, anxiety is one of those conversations that is, it's talked about in so many different ways, some difficult, some hard. I don't know that I can narrow down my thoughts to exactly one thing, but I'll try to be concise, is um, a verse that I really love and have held on to in the midst of my journey with anxiety has been um, Philippians 4, 6 or 7, which is, but in all things by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all our understanding, will guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And what I really love about that verse is the invitation it presents to be honest with God, both about where we're at and who he is. And I think there's such a powerful, there's something so powerful in the marriage of those two. And I think there's such a reason why he asks us to come to him that way, because he wants to know exactly where we're at. Like he already knows. Like when we're anxious, when we're really struggling in the pits of it, and again, anxiety, it looks different for every person. For me, some of my journey has included counseling and medication, the whole thing. For some people it doesn't. It can look a lot of different ways, but whatever that journey looks like God wants us to come to him so honestly in it. And so my first encouragement would just be like, come to him honestly. Like you don't have to hide it from him. He already knows. And then the second part of that verse, though, is also to kind of invite him in. Like I love how it says, like, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, because you can't come to him with thanksgiving without kind of acknowledging who he is as the one to be most thankful for. And so, again, and not in a band-aid sort of way, but just in, again, I think there's something beautiful that just kind of exists in the marriage of being equally honest with, this is where I'm at, but this is who you are. And you know both of those things already, but I'm going to acknowledge them both and bring them both to you. And so, yeah, I think that would be my biggest encouragement.
That's
I love it.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's cool that you brought that up, because I had a conversation just this morning with a friend about that. Like God does already know, but he wants to hear it from us, because he wants us to trust and really just be open, be able to actually say it out loud with him. And yeah, I love that about the Lord. He's so kind and he's so intentional, and he wants us to be open with him, because he is our safe place and he is our refuge. And when we know that and we actually speak it out in prayer and just in journaling in different ways, it just shows how much we can trust. And he showed, it's just that trust is there. It's built. It continues to be built as we open up our hearts and say and lean into his love. So yeah, thanks for being open and honest about that too. Just that leaning into just being vulnerable with God. But yeah, thank you so much, Maggie, for sharing this morning or today. Really, it's been a joy hearing your story, and I think so many people will be encouraged by it, especially with dealing with anxiety and stuff. I know even some people in my life that have dealt with anxiety, and it's a real thing. And so to hear you push past that with the Lord and just actually walk into your calling in such a beautiful way is just, I think, a great testimony and will be an encouragement to a lot of people. So, yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And where can people keep up with you and just follow your journey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And thank you guys again for having me. You guys are so wonderful and sweet. And I want to ask all of the questions back, except for I know podcast format, most people have the answers to them already. So, well, I appreciate you guys both and your hearts and what you guys are doing, both individually, personally, but also together through this podcast. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.